Voices serves as the megaphone for individuals who have endured transformational change. By highlighting trials and triumphs, our desire is to create a safe space for pivotal conversations, which in turn will deepen the story and provoke hope for you, our listeners. As you may know, change is never easy, but it is inevitable. You are not alone in what you're facing. Your transformation is possible, purposeful, and now. And here's Aaron Wiggum, founder and managing director of New You, with this week's guest.
Welcome to another edition of New Voices. I'm your host, Aaron Wiggum. I'm also the managing director of New You, which New You is a way for an individual to imagine, discover, and actualize the 2.0 version of yourself. But today we're on New Voices with an amazing gentleman you're going to get to meet in just one moment. He is a Tulsa transplant. He came here a few years ago, and we've kind of connected offline, online. And I'm so excited to see how our work is coming together like a confluence, like two different rivers, right? And so we're going to spend some time really understanding his story, as well as how his story feeds and fuels his work today, right? So sit back, get some popcorn, enjoy the story of this father, of this husband, of this community advocate, of this ex-athlete. But he really is doing amazing work in the DEI space. And he's one of those guys who is not just saying the buzzwords, but he's living the very essence of them. And so I want you to receive none other than my friend, my brother, Jonathan Long, who serves as the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the Tulsa Regional Chamber. Welcome, Jonathan.
Man, my guy, I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing your platform with me. I'm looking forward to this. I'm excited.
Yeah, cool. So thanks for saying yes and sharing your story with us. So we start off every conversation with, what is the Jonathan Long story? I'd love to hear your story from your perspective.
Man, that's good. You know, I've big fans. So I watched several of these.
Okay.
So, so that one I know was coming.
Okay,
so
good.
all the rest of them, we go kind of go everywhere.
That's
but,
right.
For this one, man, my story is crazy because I was thinking about this and I was like, it's not often you have to tell your story from like a beginning point, right?
Right.
For me, I think my story is always centered around authenticity.
Okay.
I think growing up, I grew up with with working class parents who accumulated middle class means, but taught us world class values.
I love that.
And growing up and having accumulating middle class means you got to kind of some growing pains. Like it's some stuff you don't really know.
That's right.
Some people that were with you who don't, as you grow, didn't quite really grow socioeconomically with you.
Yeah.
So you have to find your place.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that really has rooted me in the work and who I am today, and just being comfortable and being authentic to who I am and what I imagine I want my life to be.
Okay.
I know we'll talk a little bit later about like success and all those things, but for me, being authentic is the most important part of my day. If I have to feel that I'm in a space or I have to do something that's not authentic to who I am or what I'm trying to accomplish, then that is my red flag. And that's the moment where, hold on, man, I think I might have to pivot from this because I feel like this isn't true to me.
Okay.
And so being authentic has been kind of the thing that has always led me towards success. And when I hadn't been in those spaces before, that's where I found myself out of sorts and lost.
Okay. Where are you from?
Oh man, grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Okay.
So grew up in the South, where real Southern hospitality. Nothing against the Midwest, but real Southern hospitality. Grew up playing a lot of baseball in the summers.
Okay.
I would tell people that our summer vacation depended upon wherever the baseball tournament, the big baseball tournament was, or tournaments were that summer.
Okay.
That's where we vacationed.
Okay.
And, you know, from there was able to...
What position?
First base.
Oh, okay. All right.
Playing first base. Caught a little early, and then my knees was like, nah, you're not gonna keep doing this. Yeah. So we go keep that same glove work and just transition it over to first base. And you saw more action over there.
Yeah, way more action.
Way better action, at least I'll say. Not as much up and down. So, you know, was able to do that. Man, went to school at Middle Tennessee State University. Mm-hmm. Had a chance to really understand. It was funny. Had a chance to understand what life was going to college.
Okay.
Because, you know, I was a pretty smart kid.
Okay.
So if I showed up and paid attention in class,
you'd be all right.
I was cool.
Yeah.
I was cool, right? But then college was like, nah, you got to do some work. Like, you actually have to do some work outside of what we tell you.
Right.
Got a chance to understand culture. Really got a chance to see, like, other people. And went to school with pretty much all Black kids since from middle, high school. So going to a predominantly white institution, I had a chance to actually understand what it was like to work with people who didn't share experiences with you. And I think as I think through my work now, also understanding that my experience is just as valid.
Right.
And I think sometimes as we look at our lives and we step into these gigantic systems, we sometimes underestimate exactly our value to those systems because our experiences don't quite match sometimes the masses. So we're trying to figure out, how do we make our experiences match those when they don't have to?
They don't have to.
They don't have to.
They're valid in themselves.
They're valid in themselves. And your job is to work through, how can you help take the good of your experiences and make these systems better?
That's good.
And I think, you know, college really helped understand that. And I learned another very important thing in college. One of my mentors taught me, which is, hey, with the right data, you can prove anything.
It's true. Yep. Figures lie and lies figure.
And that really helped me to understand really that it's not necessarily what people are telling you. It's how you're packaging that and how you're aligning that to whatever that progress looks like.
Yep. That's good. Let's talk about that. So you grew up in a predominantly Black area and schools, and then you go to this PWI, and let's talk about, like, what were some of those things that you felt like that were cultural, that were relevant, that were maybe in some ways overlooked, but you kind of wore them as a badge of honor? What were some of those things?
So one of the things, especially early on, was I noticed that the group of Black kids that entered college with me, our freshman year, we was tough. Okay. Like, we was tight. Okay. Because, you know, we looked around and it wasn't a whole bunch of us. Yeah. So we had to make sure that we were supporting one another. We had to work through one another. And I think that, you know, helped breed some of that teamwork philosophy that I grew up on.
Got it.
You know, playing baseball back as I was growing up, I was one of the kids who got a chance to play for one of my role models. His name was Coach Glenn, Coach G. Okay. And Coach G was like the baseball coach for us. Like, he was the baseball coach. If you got selected to play for Coach G,
you the man.
It was an honor.
Okay.
And that taught me teamwork. It also was my first lesson in being authentic. Okay. Because as I had mentioned before, as I was growing up, you know, socioeconomically, I started to, you know, have some different opportunities that other kids and that I grew up with didn't have. Okay. Right. And when I started to see some of those differences, especially with some of my teammates, I started to kind of be more like them. Like, so I was trying to do some of the things that they were doing. Got it. That maybe my parents weren't teaching us to do. And I remember going to a tournament one day and Coach G was like, Jonathan, man, what? I noticed you're not being like you. And I was like, well, no, what you mean? I'm fitting in. You know, I'm doing, I'm with the group. I'm with the team. And he was like, well, hey, I want you to understand that I didn't ask you to be on the team to be Casey. Casey was the best player on the team. To try to be Casey or some of them other guys. I wanted Jonathan on the team. And I need Jonathan to be on the team if we're going to be successful. Wow. And that was him giving me permission
to be you,
to be me.
Wow.
And that moment really resonated with me moving forward that, hey, as much as possible, you need that it's okay, be you. So as I was working through, being a business major at Middle Tennessee State, as one of the things I noticed that as I was going through, freshman, sophomore, senior, it'd be less of my peers who look like me in those classes.
Yep.
And I struggled a bit my sophomore year because of that.
Okay.
Like I was like, hey, my surroundings were getting different.
Right.
And I was trying to, again, find where do I fit in?
Right.
What does this look like for me?
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that allowed me to really help to see this was the expectation that I had versus what maybe some of the teachers had, maybe what the system had for me.
For you, right.
Because I was like, I want these jobs. Because the only reason I went to college was because that's what they told me I had to go to make money.
Right.
I knew in the 6th grade, I was told I was going to college. And I was like, well, why am I going to college? Because that's what you need to do to make money. I said, well, that's why I got to go. I thought I was going to college in the 7th grade. Like, I thought, okay, cool. Next year I'm going, right?
Where I got to sign.
I was like, okay, cool. That's where I'm going. I didn't really know what it was. I was like, that's what they said. I said, I want to make money. That's where they said, you got to go.
Right.
Right. So being able to look at why I'm here and understanding that, this isn't something that my family did. This wasn't a family pastime.
No, I'm not legacy.
I'm not legacy into this.
Yeah.
This was, for me, this is where you make your opportunity. So you have to treat it differently. You also have to understand that you got to survive. So part of it is survival mode, but it's also, hey, I got to survive, but I need to excel. Right. It's not just survive and advance all the time.
Right.
You got to find a way that you excel.
Yeah.
And being able to find the little tricks of the trade to do that is something that's kind of even helped me to this day.
Wow, that's good, man. You used a phrase a little bit earlier when you talked about Coach G, and I'm gonna give you a spot here to give him his flowers, right? You said he gave you the permission to be you. That is a powerful statement, right? And like I said, shout out to him for being that male particular figure to affirm you in that way, to say, now doesn't mean dad wasn't there, uncle or whoever wasn't there, but to have another championing voice say, I want you to be you, and you have the permission to be you. Can you just lean a little bit more into that and give him a little bit of his flowers in that?
For sure, man. Coach G was the authority in that situation.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we equate leadership and authority, right?
And it's not the same.
It's not the same. It's not the same.
You
could be a great leader and have no authority. You can have all the authority and be a horrible leader.
Yes. You see it all the time.
Yeah, all the time. And, Coach G was the authority in that situation.
Yeah.
And not just because we were on the team, but this is also something I love. Like, baseball was my life.
Okay.
Like, I think I wrote in my former journalist days that at probably the age of 6, a baseball bat became my most prized possession that replaced my He-Man sword.
Okay, got you.
You know what I'm saying? Because that I just loved baseball.
Okay.
And he paid enough attention to me to recognize that I wasn't being who I was. And then cared enough to tell me, hey, this thing that you're trying to do, you don't have to do that.
Right.
You and told me, and the other thing that sometimes gets lost when I talk about this is told me that me being me was important to our mission.
Right. Wow.
Like, we wouldn't be successful if I wasn't me. And I think as we look at the work that we're doing, the areas in our life that might not align with who we are, you have to be able to find that alignment that says, hey, if we're going to be successful, and success is whatever you define it, whatever you define success as,
you got to be you.
You got to be you.
Wow.
In the moment that you're not you, that's going to throw a lot of stuff off. So a lot of times people, we ask ourselves, hey, man, what's going wrong, man? This ain't quite work. It's because you're not doing what you should be doing. because you're trying to do something different that's outside of your alignment.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's throwing the success off.
Wow. Receive those flowers, Coach G.
Yeah, Coach G, hey man, you the man, my guy.
So here's the thing. What I want to do is I want to fast forward a little bit, and I want to tether that to the work you're doing now in DEI and how that agency informs and inspires and is infused in the work that you're doing now in this DEI space, dealing, managing a portfolio of a lot of corporates, as well as being that go-between with the community itself. Like, talk about, you're in a very precarious position where you're sitting on the elbow, we'll say, of the hinge of two things that need each other. The community needs the corporations, and the corporations need the community, right? And so, can you just speak to that?
Oh yeah, it's I talk a lot about that one alignment, and making sure to be in alignment, you have to understand what the vision is, right?
Right.
And it's important to be able to not just understand the vision, but recognize the roles that people in organizations and people in agencies have in the vision. And then you have to be able to communicate that.
Yeah.
And communication is probably the tough thing.
Right.
Because a lot of people feel like they know how to communicate or what communication is. But being able to communicate means whatever it is you're trying to get across has to be not just spoken or delivered from you,
but
it has to be received.
Yes, yeah.
And too many times we deliver stuff and we hide around the authenticity of it. Oh, well, this is who I am. This is who I am. Well, the authenticity isn't necessarily how you're delivering.
Right.
It's what you're delivering.
Yes.
Are you delivering the authentic messages that you feel like are important and are of you? Now, how you do that may have to change.
Right.
I tell people, I don't speak to my mother the same way I speak to my friends.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I'm not saying different stuff for the most part.
Right.
But the delivery the packaging has to be different. Yep. So being able to understand what's important to these companies and then how does that relate to our communities is extremely important.
Right.
Too often than not, especially marginalized communities and people who look like us, marginalized or not, from a socioeconomic standpoint, those messages don't make it because we're either focused on one thing or, hey, we're like, oh, no, this is what it needs to be. And then companies are saying, well, nah, this is what it's going to be.
Right.
So you're trying to find that balance, right? Yeah. So it's really getting in there to say, well, okay, hey, you want to do this. Here's how that gets you to that success.
Yeah.
And then go into community and say, hey, here's what we got to do. We need y'all to do this, this, and do that. And again, find your space in that. One of the things that has helped me be successful is I'm really big on being able to just find my space. Just find my space. Yep. And I'm good with that space.
Right.
I'm not comparing my space to anybody else. This is my space. I'm going to own this space. And I think as we watch, some of our heroes transition, though y'all can't see it, but man, my man walked in here with the cold Dion glasses on. You know what I'm saying? Cold Dion glasses on. Blender Cinema check. But as we watch our heroes transition, watching them find their authenticity in the new roles, in that leadership and that authority, it's some of the most beautiful stuff for me to watch.
Wow.
Because it allows me to see, okay, hey, here's what they did in this situation. Why did they do that? Oh, they did it because of this. Then I take it back to what I used to watch for them being players or whatever. Yep. It's like, okay, cool. So how's that transitioning into the boardroom?
It's blueprinting.
It's finding that and saying, hey, well, no, I know where we're going. I see the vision.
Yeah.
I see the vision. Yeah. And if as long as you can see the vision and understand your place and your role in that,
you can align.
Then you can align and you can make it work.
Yeah.
But you got to see the vision.
That's good, man. That's really good. Okay, so you wrap up college. What's your first job out of college?
Man, so ironically enough, one of my best friends we were in school, one of my best friends, he was a journalism major.
Okay.
He was struggling one day, down bad.
Yeah.
Down bad.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, what's wrong, man? You look horrible.
Mhm.
It's like, what's going on? He was like, man, I'm the editor of this thing. I don't have content. People aren't getting the content. I said, well, how can I help?
Mhm.
That's my spirit, man. How can I help?
Yeah.
He's like, well, I need you to write something.
Mm.
I said, oh. I said, okay. I said, well, either sports or entertainment, because that's the only things that I felt comfortable enough that if somebody ran up on me on campus, that I could defend,
right.
And not have to escalate to something else, to disrespect.
Right.
So, man, got involved in, so I wrote some sports stuff.
Okay.
Man, that took off, went well, got accepted to the Sports Journalism Institute, the top minority sports journalist program for college kids in the country.
Oh, wow.
Got accepted into that
Mm-hmm.
and was like, all right, I went to school to do sports marketing, be like an agent and work in that part of the business.
Right.
But now this journalism stuff picking up.
Mm-hmm.
So it was time for me to get an internship.
Mhm.
I had 2 on the table. One in sports marketing, one in sports journalism. Sports journalism wasn't paid.
Okay.
So we going in with that one. And so, man, I transitioned that. And then they told me that you just got to have a degree. It doesn't matter what it's in to be a newspaper, to be a sports journalist. You just got to have a degree. So I said, I could stay on this route. So I was like, cool. I ain't got to start over.
Right.
But that was my worry.
Mhm.
So, man, I got a job doing some sports work, being a sports reporter at the Tennessean in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay. Nice.
So that was my first career, covering high school sports, getting a chance to do a little college football every now and then.
Mhm.
So yeah, man, I had a good time. And it really, honestly, it taught me how to create messaging for audiences.
Yeah. Wow, that's good. Okay. When you think about this, so you're navigating these waters from predominantly Black area to a PWI into the workforce, and you're navigating now this workforce as an adult, bringing along the authentic version of yourself. How do you feel as though? Well, let me ask you this first. Do you feel like you were prepared for the world you were entering? 1, and then 2, how do you feel like you could? What do you feel like was your value proposition being now in that world based on the track record that you came with?
Man, that's a great question. I felt that I was prepared to be me.
Okay.
Now, me wasn't necessarily a great fit for the journalism world at the time.
Yeah.
Now I would have been great.
Okay.
But at the time,
Right.
It wasn't, because, I wrote stuff
Mhm.
with the references that I got.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that had me leave the industry a couple of years in was that, I'd be sitting down with my editors and they'd be like, hey, we don't get this reference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you got to change it. I'm like, I don't want to change it.
Right.
I'd be like, people who look like me, people who are in this
they know
culture,
what this means.
They get this.
Yeah.
Well, those aren't our readers. And I was like, yeah, that's why the industry's dying.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
let's find a balance.
Right.
Right. And I didn't quite know how to handle
Mm-hmm.
that part.
Yeah.
Right. I was able to find a good amount of success early
Mm-hmm.
because I was rooted in who I was. So I knew, I was able to talk to recruits
Yeah.
who didn't want to talk to the other writers because they was like, oh man, he cool.
Right. Yeah.
I was able to still also talk to coaches because I understood the game and had that respect, right? So I was able to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the system
Mm.
of understanding how to play the game that I wasn't quite
Prepared for.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, luckily, as I continue to work through that
Mm-hmm.
and, even switching careers, I was able to find really good examples of, hey, and role models of, hey, here's how you do this.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what I'm saying? Hey, you got to walk down.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, is this your Super Bowl? Is this fight your
Right.
Super Bowl?
Right.
If you win this one,
It breaks up everything.
is this that? Is this that? Well, it's
Right.
not. Okay,
Then
then maybe we don't win the food
Put
with
your
it,
gun
right?
away. Yeah.
So really understanding some of those things helped me to make progress in my career.
That's good. That's good. And so when you think about your evolution as a professional and as a man, we'll say, when you think about your evolution, what would the 13-year-old Jonathan say about your current state? Where would you would you look and be like, oh my God, I never thought I'd be here? Or would you look at it and say, you know what? I think he would be proud. Like, how do you feel like you're
I would 13-year-old me would probably would look at me and be like, man, you've had a good life.
Yeah.
You've had a good life. Like you to quote a Frank Sinatra song, yeah, I'm diverse like that. And you did it your way.
You did it your way.
You did it, you did it your way.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the things that I think he'd be most proud of is, I have a saying, is, do you really want to win or just look good losing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Shout out to little brother who I stole that from the song. I've been able to really focus on trying to win.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy to just look good losing.
Yeah.
It's really easy.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people think they're winning, but they're looking good losing.
Yeah.
And they're okay with that.
Right. Yeah.
I've been able to really find my way by focusing on what it takes to actually win.
Mm.
And I think it's because of all those principles growing up in sports and doing all of these things that have rooted me in that. And I don't think I've lost that.
That's good. That's good.
I don't think I've lost that.
That's good. So let's talk about, what brings you to Tulsa? You come to Tulsa everybody has this like very epiphany moment when they come to Tulsa. So let's hear your story.
Oh man, this is interesting because, so journalism brings me to Wichita, Kansas from Tennessee.
Yep.
So I'm in Wichita. I'm starting to actually get cemented in community work and getting involved and what that looks like. And I'd go to meetings and people would say, hey, this is where all the important decisions are made. So like, this is where you need to be. So I go here and nobody look like us.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, hey man, this is where the future of this stuff is happening. Why aren't we there? Well, we don't know how to get people who look like you to come. We know, okay, cool. Got you. So I started a young professional organization for professionals of color, and that gained a lot of traction early. A lot of traction, led me to the chamber world. So I was in the chamber world, doing really good work in leadership and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I saw an opportunity open up here. I had worked with the leadership at the Tulsa Regional Chamber on a visit, on planning a virtual visit during the pandemic. So I was like, hey, good people, solid from our working together. So initially was like, hey, I interview pretty well. If I get it, push the price up and get a couple of extra dollars out of it, right? Started to do my research and really fell in love with what I was seeing in the momentum of Tulsa. Obviously the history is complex.
Yes.
The history is what it is, right? But I also started to see that they were doing things for Black people specifically that weren't being done in other places of the country.
Anywhere else. And
I was like, in Tulsa?
Yeah, yeah.
And the thing that I think really cemented it for me was when I started to do that research, I started to see people who look like us who had decision-making power.
Yeah.
And it was several people. And I was very rarely where I seen the same people in multiple places.
Right.
And I was like, oh man, it's a community for this here. And I asked the Lord, I said, hey, is this what I should do?
Yeah.
And I got the answer that I got was, this is something you've been asking for. You can either run from it or run to it.
Wow.
So I ran to it.
Okay. And and clearly it's embraced you.
And it has. And Tulsa has opened its arms. The community has been great. I think the work here, because of the history, it means a little more.
Yeah.
It means a little more.
Yep.
because of the history.
I agree.
And you feel it when you get here. You
Yeah.
you feel it, which was scary to me the first week. I was like, oh my God, like, you actually feel it.
You do.
So it's been, man, it's been a great experience. It's been fantastic. It's obviously working in a very difficult industry,
Mm-hmm.
very frustrating at times.
Mm-hmm.
I call it my legacy work.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of my family, it's the most important work that I'll ever do.
Mm.
Just because I want us to win.
Yeah.
And I think, and people ask me, what do you do at the chamber? Like, what does a chamber do?
Yeah.
Like, what is it? And I tell people, especially for the Tulsa Chamber, because we oversee economic development, tourism, and community development. Every day I get to do some type of work that involves making this city the best Tulsa it could be.
Yes.
And that means for it to be the best Tulsa it can be, there has to be a place for people who look like us.
Listen, I can't agree with you more. And one thing I'll say is the Tulsa Regional Chamber, and I haven't been in every city in America, okay, but I've been to anyone that you would name, I've been there, right? Tulsa Regional Chamber is by far one of the most in tune, like, has the pulse of this city and heartbeat and area, and working hand in hand and congruently with all parties that are for the advancement of Tulsa than I've ever seen of any chamber in any other city. Like, when I see what's happening in Tulsa, the Tulsa Regional Chamber is one of those propellers that is making it happen and steering where it goes. And I've just never seen it done like this before. And like I said, it's easy. I won't say it's easier in Tulsa, but it's done with ease in Tulsa because of how accessible people are and how, there is a level of like camaraderie and whatever, but they don't drop the ball when it comes to like what a chamber is supposed to do. They do not drop the ball. And I'm just, I'm always kind of thankful and have a level of gratitude for the work that the chamber is doing, because it is making Tulsa a more lively and viable city for everyone, And so kudos to you guys for the hard work that you're doing. It is not easy.
Oh man, thank you for that, man. We've got really good leadership. We've got a great team.
Yeah.
Man, the team at the chamber is one of the best in the country, if not the best in the country.
Mm-hmm.
We've, from economic development, from tourism, all of the entities, we work really well together.
Mm-hmm.
And we also, again, understand the alignment with what our responsibility is to the community.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to talk about lanes. Like, we get into, this is your lane, this is your lane. I like to focus on guardrails.
Okay.
So what I'll say is like, hey, we know where the guardrails are.
Mm-hmm.
And our job is to manage and work within the lanes to get us where we need to go.
Right.
So sometimes, guess what? We're going to move over to that far left and we're going to step on that gas.
Yeah, but we still on the road. Yes.
But then sometimes we know we're going to get over to that right and let some people pass,
right,
because they're moving a little bit more and faster than we are in an area.
Right.
And they're carrying cargo that we can't carry.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. So really understanding, again, kind of what is your activity in the work,
mm-hmm,
in the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean you have to do the same thing all the time.
Right.
It just means understand, to move this part of the project forward, what is your role in that?
Right.
And again, just from going to play sports, you learn that every night is maybe not your night to be the star.
That's right. Yeah.
There's some people who, they the star every night.
Every night, yeah.
But more often than not, most of us have moments where, it's my night tonight.
Right.
And tomorrow night, I'm going to pass the ball to the other person,
mm-hmm,
and I'm going to cheer for them as it's their night.
Exactly.
And I think, the more that we do that,
mm-hmm,
the better as a community, the better as an organization, the better as people we are.
Yeah.
And most importantly, we get things moving forward that way.
Yeah. One thing I notice and know about you is that you are and are seen as a solution. And I want to talk a little bit about the weight of that expectation. I've seen you bring resolve to situations. I've seen you bring resolve to maybe recalcitrant relationships that now you've been able to be a bridge that parties may not have had the best dealings, and now you've been able to pair hands together and move things forward. And so let's talk a little bit about the weight and expectation of being a solution and seen as a solution.
The weight would be heavy if I tried to carry it places to where it's not supposed to go.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, again, riding this authenticity, right?
Yep.
Is if I feel like this is for me to do, then it doesn't feel as hard.
Got it.
Not to say it's not as hard.
Right.
It doesn't feel as hard. I feel like I'm in the right space.
You agree with it.
This is what I should be doing.
Yeah.
So cool. Okay, it's going to be bumpy a little bit, but, I expected that, right? I think sometimes we just get in our way a little bit because we're trying to force the issue or we're trying to, it's got to be done on my timeline in this way. Sometimes you got to let stuff happen.
Yep.
And you got to pay attention to what's happening in the moment.
Yeah.
And there'll be several times I'll be like, hey, this conversation ain't quite going like we think it should. So, hey, you know what? Let's chill out for a minute. Let's try to reconvene. Maybe this in the project.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I think you are doing this person's doing that. I think, we should try to figure it out. And then be like, oh, okay, no, that's not it. Right? I think a lot of times we talk about, you should work with this person or you should work with that. Just because people are doing the same thing
don't mean they should
work together because more often than not, they might not be doing it the same way.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
that's the thing that you got to focus on.
Right.
If your standard of excellence in your operations aren't my standard of excellence in operations,
we're gonna bump heads.
We go bump heads, and now we both stuck.
Yes.
Right? So my thing is, hey, what are you trying to do? How are you trying to do it? And can I help align you with the people that you should be aligned with to move this forward? And if not, cool. You know what? Everybody can win.
Yeah.
There are enough wins for everybody.
Yes.
That don't mean we got to win together.
Yeah.
So that helps it for me not feel as heavy, even though the work is very, very heavy.
Yeah, yeah. And you bring up a good point. Like, we always call life a game, but it really ain't a game. This is life, right?
Play with it if you want.
Yeah, this is really not a game. I don't want the doctor to be keeping score with my life while he's operating on me or she's operating on me, right? Like, this is not a game. This is real, right? And so in games, there are winners and losers, but in life, we can win together, right? I don't want the doctor to think win, lose if he's operating on me, right? Like, how do I win and they lose? No, that's not what I want you to think. I want you to think, how do we win together? How if my attorney is working on something for me, I don't want that attorney to think, how can I win and they lose? Like, I want that person to think, how can we win together, right? And the more I can get you to win, my client, the more I win as a company, right? And so being able to remove ourselves from this game concept when it comes to humans and realize that everything else, it can be wins and losses. It can be ebbs and flows or whatever. But when you're dealing with people, it should always be about the win. How do we build for the win, the collective, the greater good of the win, right? They say a rising tide raises all boats, right? So, like, how do we put our pride aside? How do we put our guilt, our whatever, our trepidations, our traumas? How do we put all those to the side and do what's good for the greater good, right? And that's how you secure the win that moves communities, cities, areas, regions, right? And so that's dope, man. Let's go into when I ask everyone this question, give me a time in your life where you had to hold on to hope. All right. This was like, you don't know if it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, where it's going to happen. Like, and you're at a low point. You're at your wit's end. How did you hold on to hope?
Man, so there was a point mid-career where I was laid off a job and ultimately being unemployed for about 18 months.
Okay.
And for someone who always had a sense of pride about their work, man, my father taught me extreme work ethic. Man, my dad went to work. And I mean, as I spoke earlier about accumulating middle class beings, he had a job where he was able to work unlimited overtime, and he worked it.
He did it. Yeah.
He worked it.
Wow.
Right. So I mean, he's instilled in us the value of work. So here I am, unemployed, and we've got some young kids. I'm like, man, how are we gonna do this? Like, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
And first 3-6 months. Okay, whatever.
It'll work out. Yeah.
Okay, cool. The next, 6 to 9, sweating a little bit more.
Yeah.
I hit that year point and I was broken. Man, I hit that year point and I didn't know what to do. I was like, I didn't see an end in sight. I struggled. And it really was, one, support from my wife, Christina. I love you, baby. Support from her.
Yeah.
Finding extracurricular things. I was able to get involved in a youth mentoring organization that really helped give me some purpose in a time where I felt I didn't have any in life. And it really helped kind of, float, my self-esteem and my sense of worth.
Yeah.
To where I was able to then find a career that, again, at the time didn't know, but allowed me to start participating in community stuff that ultimately led me to this seat right here.
Okay.
But I think it took me to go through that moment because that moment taught me the importance of being in the right place. That a moment taught me the importance of being in alignment with who you want to be and what you want to do versus just like, hey, whatever job will have me, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Right. And stop focusing. Money is important. Don't get me wrong, but not focusing solely on money, but looking at the bigger picture of where I want my life to be. What's the vision? And does this get you to the vision? And I think that made it very clear. That moment really helped refocus me in a way that allowed me to find success.
That's good, man. I want to double back on that and give your wife some flowers here because you talked about her support in that low moment. And that's something that we as men don't get to hear often enough is like how we are supported in the valley experiences, right? And so I'm gonna just give you a moment to give your wife some flowers here for how, like, what was the support like, first of all, and then what did it do to you? How was it able to rebuild, reinforce, refocus you as you were going through this very turbulent time?
We don't really know how we'll handle hard times until you go through them, right? You say what you'll do,
right,
but you don't know what you'll actually do, right? And there were extreme moments where I was just like, I ain't want to talk to nobody. And I think the biggest thing, she allowed me the grace to go through that.
Wow.
But never took her eyes off of me while I was doing it. So she was always present.
Yeah.
But gave me the space or the support, whatever I needed in those moments, and those things changed. She was always there to help provide, right? And I never felt alone.
Wow. That's good.
And that is, how they say now, make sure you check on your strong friends.
Yeah.
Right? She always made sure to check on me. And that was one of the things that really helped get me through, that time.
Wow.
So, she's been ride or die for me for a long time. So, so it's been, again, going back to that understanding of success, right? And this is in all things. Like, we talk a lot about what does success look like for us? Not what does success look like for you?
Yeah.
What does it look like for me?
No, to you as an individual.
Yeah.
Yes.
To us.
Yeah.
Because there are moments, because she's a go-getter as well, there are moments where sometimes she got to be out in front.
Right.
And now I got to be okay with that, right? Because we both understand what success looks like and what we're racing for. We both see the vision.
Yes.
And the vision means sometimes she got to be forward.
Yeah.
Sometimes she got to step back and I got to be in front, right?
Yeah.
And then sometimes we arm in arm and we just trudging through it together.
Right.
But it's important to understand that you can never isolate your success in the vision.
Right.
Because the moment you do that, you kind of, those guardrails I was talking about, now you off the rails. Because you done took your eyes off the road.
Yeah. And I use this analogy all the time. Most female sports don't have cheerleaders, but most male sports got cheerleaders on the side. You need somebody telling you, you can make it, you can do it. Yeah, there's something about from a male standpoint. There's something that happens. When you are winning, you want to hear it. When you're losing, you need to hear it, right? And as a husband who is out solving problems, and now you are in the throes of something that you feel like you can't solve for. Like, I need at this time, I need to hear it the most. Like, I can do it. It's gonna be all right. Like, and the longer that period goes, the more it just eats at who you are, the fiber of who you are, right? Because you actually feel like, I'm not authentic. Like, this isn't me. This isn't the me I know myself to be, right? So that's so good, man. I'm glad that you shared that. What are some call to actions for our listeners? And what are your socials? How can people follow you, reach you, any of that?
So from a call to action standpoint, hey man, get to it.
Okay.
If you got something you've been wanting to do, you got that thing that just won't go away, like just won't go away.
Yeah. Don't
think you're going to conquer it all tomorrow.
Right.
But take that step.
Yeah.
Figure out what that step is right now. And a lot of times we get into those moments where, I can't do it today because of da-da-da. Well, what can you do?
Right.
Because you can do something.
Yep.
What can you do?
Yeah.
Right? And then just keep taking steps.
Yeah.
Keep moving forward. There was a quote I saw from, I want to say it was Steve Jobs, where it was talking about like finding success. And you don't have to pull yourself to do this hard work because the vision will pull you. Right? So whatever that vision it is, lock into that.
Right.
Lock into that. And then just take that first step.
Yeah.
Whatever that step is. And if it's not the first step, take the 15th step.
Yeah.
If you've already taken some steps and it's been not as fast as you thought it would be, hey, keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yep.
And never get too emotionally tied to it. As they say, you having a bad day, this too shall pass.
Right.
You having a great day, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
Right? But just stay consistent, stay moving forward. Man, y'all can find me on social, J Long Achieves. I like to big people up. Big up to my support, my social media support, Keisha. Royster. You need some support, holla at Keisha.
Yeah.
We getting the social media right, man. Social media has been one of those things for me that was really hit or miss.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I only care sports and sneakers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but now we really want to try to help people to understand, not just like for me, like what I'm doing, right? I think it's easier for people to get involved when they see other people doing stuff.
Absolutely.
And then they can find their way, right? So we trying to do a better job of, really showcasing the work and getting people to see, hey, you too can be involved, and hey, here's what we're doing out here. So J Long Achieves, LinkedIn, IG, Facebook. You can find me. I appreciate you.
Sounds good. Well, you've heard it here. This has been a wonderful conversation with Jonathan Long. Please go and follow him on his socials. We also want you to follow us on New Voices and also New You. They're both on LinkedIn, IG, and FB. And so that is our discussion for today. We look forward to hearing from you soon. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to this episode of New Voices. Visit our website at www.newuunlimited.com. That is NEWU Unlimited.com. Follow us on social media at New You Unlimited on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And a special thank you to our producer, Jesse Ulrich. If you're looking for self-improvement, join our programs for personal and professional development. New You is a way for diverse talent to imagine, discover, and actualize a 2.0 version of yourself. Bring your future into focus.